funky. It's painted on the faces that they think that I'm a junkie.
Ever wonder why some of the best music feels like a secret handshake? Like you're part of some underground club that knows something the rest of the world missed? I just found this absolutely insane Japanese band from 1984 that sounds exactly, and I mean exactly, like Tame Impala. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of what I'm about to show you. You know those nights when you're diving deep into YouTube at 3 a.m. and you find something so good you literally have to get up and pace around your room? That's what this whole video is going to feel like. That right there, that's from a band that played exactly 3 shows in Manchester, recorded 1 album in someone's garage, and then vanished. Their vinyl now sells for $2,000, if you can even find it. Before we jump into these 15 mind-bending bands that time forgot, hit subscribe, because we do deep dives like this every week. And trust me, after hearing what's coming up on this list, you're going to want to stick around for our next video about the underground cassette trading scene. Get ready, because some of these bands sound so futuristic, you won't believe they're from 4 decades ago. Let's dive in. Let me tell you about the band that changed my life at 2 a.m. in my dad's garage, the Chameleons. I was sorting through his old records when I found this album, Script of the Bridge, with this moody, dark cover. The moment I dropped the needle on Don't Fall, holy smokes. It was like Joy Division meets The Edge from U2, but somehow bigger. These guys from Manchester created this wall of sound that just wraps around your brain. Mark Burgess's voice has this haunting echo that makes you feel like you're in some ancient cathedral. The wild thing? They were selling out shows across England, but barely made a dent in America. Their guitarist Reg Smithies invented this signature sound where he'd used 2 different delay pedals. Man, modern bands are still trying to copy that tone. Every time I play them for friends, they're like, how have I never heard this before? Felt, alright, this next one is pure accidental magic. Picture this, Birmingham, 1981, and this guy Lawrence, no last name, just Lawrence, forms felt. The first time I heard their song, Primitive Painters, I was working at this tiny record store, and I swear I stood there frozen for the entire 7 minutes. They made 10 albums in 10 years. Who does that? Their guitarist Maurice Debank played these crystalline riffs that sound like classical music, played through a dream. The crazy part? They wrote a song called I Will Die With My Head in Flames, because Lawrence was convinced that's how he'd go out. Spoiler alert, he's still very much alive and making music. If you love the Smiths, this band will blow your mind. Now this is where it gets really interesting. Section 25 came from the same factory record scene as Joy Division, but took a totally different turn. First time I played Looking from a Hilltop at a party, 3 people rushed over to Shazamite. The track sounds like it could have been made yesterday, all pulsing synthesizers and hypnotic beats. These guys started as a post-punk band but evolved into this incredible electronic outfit that basically predicted the whole EDM movement. The wildest part? They recorded their best album, From the Hip, with New Order's Bernard Sumner producing, and somehow it still flew under the radar. Even today, DJs are still crate digging for their records. Ever have one of those perfect college radio moments at midnight? That's how I found these guys. I was half asleep when sleep came drifting through my speakers, and I literally sat up in bed. Picture this ethereal mix of swirling guitars and haunting keyboards that sound like a foggy morning feels. These guys were making shoegaze before anyone even coined the term. Their album, Epic Garden Music, is like The Cure meets Cocteau Twins, but with this mysterious, shadowy vibe all their own. The funny thing? They're still playing shows today, and their new stuff is just as dreamy. I actually met their guitarist Gas in a record store last year. Super humble guy who had no idea their music helped create an entire scene. The sound. If any band deserves a documentary, it's the sound. Man, Adrian Borland's voice. It's like a mix of Jim Morrison's power and Ian Curtis's emotion. Their album, From the Lion's Mouth, should be mentioned in the same breath as Unknown Pleasures, or 17 Seconds. I found their music through this incredibly worn-out cassette at a flea market, and it's still one of my best $5 finds ever. The tragic part? Well, let's just say they deserved way better than what they got. But those songs, especially Winning, pure lightning in a bottle. Speaking of criminally underrated bands, the Comsat Angels were basically Sheffield's best-kept secret. These guys could go from atmospheric dream pop to intense post-punk in the same song. The first time I played Independence Day, my jaw literally dropped. That bass line, those spacey guitars, the way Stephen Fellows' voice just soars over everything. Fun fact, they were so good that David Bowie used to show up at their gigs. They actually had to change their name to CS Angels in America because of some weird trademark thing with Comsat Satellite Company. Talk about bad luck, right? But man, their album Sleep No More is like a masterclass in building tension and atmosphere. Here's a band that even your favourite post-rock bands have probably never heard of. Picture this. I'm digging through this dusty crate in Tokyo and I find this album Extractions with this weird abstract cover. The store owner sees me holding it and just gives me this knowing nod. Diff Jaz were making instrumental post-rock in 1985, like 15 years before it became a thing. The crazy part? They actually played with the Cocteau Twins, and Robin Guthrie produced their album. It's all these swirling, effects-heavy guitars that sound like waves crashing in slow motion. No vocals, just pure atmosphere. They only made a handful of recordings before disappearing, but man, bands like Sigur Rós and Godspeed You! Black Emperor owe them a serious debt. The Wake. You know what's wild? Factory Records wasn't just Joy Division and New Order. The Wake were this incredible band that somehow got overshadowed by their label mates. First time I heard Here Comes Everybody, I was in this tiny Glasgow record shop, and the owner was like, "You think New Order invented that sound? Check this out." Their singer Caesar's voice has this beautiful melancholy that just hits different. The best part? They later joined Sarah Records and basically helped invent indie pop as we know it. Their bass player Bobby actually went on to form Primal Scream. Bet you didn't see that coming. Ever heard something so beautiful it actually made you mad that more people don't know about it? That's Lowlife. These Scottish guys made this incredible dark dream pop that sounds like The Cure if they were even more atmospheric. Their album Diminuendo, which I found in this guy's basement collection he was selling after his divorce, his loss seriously, is just perfect. The singer Will Heggie was actually in Cocteau Twins for a minute, but what they created was entirely their own thing. Think shoegaze meets post-punk, but with this incredible emotional weight. Every single person I've played Eternity Road for has immediately asked for more. You ever think about those bands that were just one lucky break away from being huge? The Pale Fountains were right there. I remember finding their album Pacific Street tucked away in my uncle's collection. He swore they were going to be the next Smiths. The moment I heard Thank You with those sweeping strings and jangly guitars, pure magic. These Liverpool lads somehow mixed love's Baroque pop with Aztec camera sophistication, and their frontman, Mick Head, was basically a genius. The record company spent a fortune promoting them, even got them on TV, but sometimes timing is everything. The funny thing, they were probably too sophisticated for their own good. When grunge hit, this kind of orchestral pop wasn't exactly what people were looking for. In Embrace talk about a band that deserved better. I discovered these guys through this weird compilation tape I got at a car boot sale. For £6, I basically found gold. In Embrace were making this intense, emotional post-punk that sounded like a more aggressive Echo and the Bunnymen. Their track The End Starts Today hits harder than most hardcore bands, but with this incredible melodic sense. The real kicker? They only pressed 500 copies of their album, and now they go for stupid money on Discogs. I actually met their old guitarist at a pub in Leeds. He couldn't believe anyone remembered them. Here's a band that basically invented a sound and got zero credit for it. I found the Rooms' In Evil Hour album at this record fair in Manchester, and the seller just smiled and said, "You're in for a treat." He wasn't wrong. These guys had this perfect mix of dark post-punk and swirling psychedelia that bands today would kill for. Dave Jackson's voice has this haunting quality that just grabs you. The weird thing, they were massive in Germany, but couldn't get arrested in the UK. They actually toured with Echo and the Bunnymen and The Fall, but somehow stayed in the shadows. Their song, Jackpot, should have been massive. It's like The Doors meets Magazine, but somehow even cooler. You want to talk about a band that was living in 3023? Disco Inferno were making music with samplers and electronics in ways that wouldn't become normal for like 20 years. First time I heard DI go pop, I had to check the release date like 5 times. 1994? No way. These guys were doing this in the late 80s. They'd sample everything, glass breaking, construction sites, TV shows, and turn it into these amazing soundscapes. Their early stuff started as post-punk, but they evolved into something there wasn't even a name for yet. The crazy part? Their gear kept breaking down at shows because they were pushing it way beyond what it was meant to do. Radiohead definitely took notes from these guys, whether they admit it or not. Okay, this one's a real wild card. The Deep Freeze Mice might have the best band name ever, and their music is just as wonderfully weird. Found their album, I Love You Little Bobo with Your Delicate Golden Lions, in this quirky shop in Leicester. These guys were like a proto-indie band, making psychedelic post-punk with absurdist lyrics, and these incredibly catchy melodies. Think early XTC meets The Residents, but more fun. They recorded everything in their garage and pressed their own records. They made like 13 albums, and each one is this perfect mix of experimentation and pop sensibility. Let's end with a bang. AC Temple were what would happen if Joy Division and Sonic Youth had a baby that was raised by the birthday party. Their album, Songs of Praise, is this beautiful chaos that somehow never got the recognition it deserved. I actually found their CD in a bargain bin for 50 pence. Criminal. The way they mix noise rock with these hypnotic bass lines and Jane Wright's haunting vocals. It's like nothing else from that era. They were on Blast First Records with Sonic Youth and Big Black, but somehow stayed underground. The best part? Their guitar sound influenced a whole generation of noise rock bands who probably don't even know it. And that's our list. If you enjoyed this journey through the forgotten corners of 80s music, hit that subscribe button. Next week, we're diving into the weird world of Japanese psychedelic bands from the 70s. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Drop a comment letting me know which of these bands you're most excited to check out. See you in the next video.